Right before the end of the world sandstorm hit, my parents picked me up and that's when I heard the fake daughter's thoughts. Is this the disaster that's going to kill the whole family in the future? No way, I have to save her and save mom and dad. I saw my parents' smiles freeze. They started ignoring me, their real daughter. Even when the disaster hit, they predicted everything through the fake daughter's thoughts and locked me in a basement to die. Living again, now I can hear her thoughts too. Sister, I'm Wendy, welcome home. I looked at the innocent-looking girl in front of me, her pure smile seemed so harmless. If I couldn't hear her thoughts, I'd totally believe her. So this is Lillian? The disaster that's going to doom the family? No way, as someone who can foresee the future, I must save her and save our parents. Wendy's lips didn't move, but I heard her voice. Then I realized why in my last life, even though I did nothing wrong, my parents seemed to despise me. I made a scarf for mom, but she thought I had my eye on her branded silk scarf. I was malnourished, frail and sickly, but dad thought I was faking it out of jealousy of Wendy. Even when I tried to improve our relationship by making a bowl of longevity noodles for Wendy, I was accused of being jealous and intentionally causing her allergies, and got locked in the storage room for a night. I listened to the laughter outside, clueless about Wendy's egg allergy, but they seemed to assume I did it on purpose. I get it now. When I saw my parents' shocked but unquestioning faces, I knew her trick had been tested many times. In my past life, I swallowed my pride and bitterness hoping for a bit of family affection. But all I got was their ruthless abandonment. When the sandstorm hit, they tricked me into the suburbs to get food. But when I risked my life to bring it back, they took it from me and pushed me out the door. I helplessly knocked, begging them to let me in. All I got in return was their gloating laughter. Finally got rid of that disaster. Now we'll be saved, won't we? With the wind howling and dust everywhere, I returned to the basement, desperate for leftover food. They had insisted on bringing me back, why toss me away like unwanted baggage now? If so, why not leave me in the orphanage in the first place? The basement got buried by sand, the door wouldn't budge from the pressure, and I could only suffocate inside, trapped. The despair and pain from my past life were still fresh, leaving me trembling. Seeing me ignore Wendy's attempts to be nice, and looking worse, my parents believed her more that I was difficult to deal with. Dad frowned, displeased. Wendy's saying hi, didn't you hear her? Max came up from behind Wendy and shoved me. What's with your attitude? Back home and already giving Wendy the cold shoulder, who do you think you are? I stumbled, almost falling, and frowned at him. He was my fiancé, or rather, Wendy's now. My parents looked surprised, maybe not expecting me to be so fragile. Seeing this, Wendy looked down, pretending to be hurt. It seems sister doesn't like me, I did take away her life for 18 years. Now that she's back, I should leave this family and return everything to her. Hearing her thoughts, whatever pity my parents had vanished. Max scowled, I just gave you a gentle push, why the big reaction? Mom hugged Wendy tenderly. Sweetheart, even with your sister back, our love for you won't change. You didn't steal anyone's life, and no one can drive you from this house. You'll always be our little princess. Then she glanced at me with annoyance, don't bring what you learned outside into our home. Wendy's innocent, she's done nothing wrong. I got up coldly, bones thin and fragile under my sleeves, looking shockingly skinny. I don't know what you're talking about. Did I do anything harmful to her? I know you didn't mean it. It's just that after 18 years of never having enough to eat, I'm really weak. That's why I fall so easily. I don't blame you. Max was speechless for a moment and looked away guiltily. Mom looked at the well-fed Wendy, then back at me, her own daughter so painfully malnourished. So she softened a bit, telling me to clean up for dinner. Wendy burrowed into Mom's arms, looking aggrieved. Sister must have had it tough in the orphanage, maybe that's why she steals money? It's my fault, I've made her develop thieving habits. Mom's softened face darkened again. Fine, you just got back, you don't know our rules yet, so don't bring shame to the family, take Wendy with you. Wendy bowed her head, her eyes red, looking scared. Sister was so scary bullying other kids at the orphanage and taking their things. Won't she bully me for being jealous of the love I have from our parents and kick me out? She shrunk back, tears welled up in her big eyes, and they comforted her while leaving me aside, feeling alienated as I watched their family's loving picture. Compared to Wendy, I seemed so cold-hearted. My parents grew more displeased, already convinced in their hearts that I was ungrateful and would harm them in the future. Don't sulk like we owe you something, toss out your junk, wash off the poor smell, looks like you need etiquette lessons. Then they ignored me, taking Wendy to pick out dresses. Watching them leave, I couldn't help but chuckle bitterly. Guess I won't need those etiquette lessons. Because soon, the sandstorm will hit, and they'll pay for what they did. In this life, I no longer strive for their approval or love. But still, Wendy can't tolerate my existence. I'm about to get my hands on all the property's inheritance. My plan was going perfectly until Lillian showed up. How unlucky. With my parents not home, I looked at Wendy's innocent face, pretending to be calm while listening to her real thoughts. Seems like I need to find a way to deal with her. I couldn't help but laugh out loud. So, she's been plotting my demise all along. As the day of the sandstorm gets closer, I started thinking about how to avoid the tragic fate of my previous life. Now I'm all alone. Even if I escape early, I've got nowhere to go, and it might alarm my family. But if I do nothing and wait for the day, with Wendy stirring things up, they would still see me as the bad omen. I can't possibly face 3 strong adults alone. Right now, the only plan is to find a safe place to hide. But I've got no money, so I need to find a chance to get some. Unexpectedly, Wendy handed me that opportunity. Lillian, I can't believe how terrible you are. Dad sat on the couch, looking at me with disappointment all over his face. Wendy stood beside him with her head down, timidly saying, Dad, maybe my necklace isn't gone because of my sister. Please don't blame her. But in her head, she was thinking, I saw her go into my room. She never wears such expensive stuff, it's my fault for not gifting it to her directly. Mom's face got even darker. Lillian, we've put up with your rudeness and lack of manners, but you can't steal from your sister. I'm so disappointed in you. I hadn't even said a word, and they'd already judged me guilty. Where's the evidence? What? Catch a thief with the stolen goods. Where's your proof? It finally dawned on my parents, they'd taken Wendy's word for it and never bothered to check or hear me out. As if, in their minds, I'm already a greedy and uncaring person. This put my parents in a bit of an awkward spot. Lillian was unfazed. I looked at her confident expression as her thoughts echoed around me. I saw her leave my room and go back to her own. It must be hidden there. But it doesn't matter, everything here was hers before anyway. Maybe I should just disappear to make her happy. Sure enough, my parents' eyes lit up, and they angrily tore into my room, turning it upside down. But they found nothing. Lillian's mask of innocence started to crack. Perhaps, maybe it's already sold? I sneered. Can't find it? Then can you leave now? I need rest. My parents looked embarrassed but left with grim faces since they had no proof. I watched as Wendy had an expression of someone who had swallowed a fly, smiling slightly as I closed the door without hesitation. Lying in bed and looking at the array of numbers in my account, I finally allowed myself a smile. That fool Lillian hid the necklace so obviously. Did she not think I could find it just like our parents could have? Still, thanks to her, I got what I needed in a pinch. No wonder she's angry after failing to find it. Afterwards, Wendy made a point to isolate me even more. One day there's a party to attend, the next she's off for a French dinner with our parents, leaving me home alone trying to shame me. But this played perfectly into my hands. I hired a professional renovation team, used the necklace money to hire them to modify a semi-basement. This was where they lived when money was tight, old, run down, with the occasional giant cockroach, and dead rats bigger than rabbits. No wonder, in my last life, no one was willing to come down here. I hired the best team to install the most advanced dust prevention systems. I put in vault-grade doors and windows to make sure they wouldn't buckle. Ventilation was the key. I chose the most precise air system so, even if the basement got buried in sand, I could still ensure a steady flow of fresh air. I also separated a bathroom, kitchen, and bedroom. I made them rush the job. With a 7-figure deposit, the crew sped up their work like crazy. Money really is the ultimate motivator. After the renovation, I bought supplies with the remaining money. In my last life, our house was high enough to avoid getting buried, but the lack of food and water was deadly. I stocked the fridge and cooler full of meats, fish, shrimp, oysters, tomahawk steak, even 2 huge lobsters. Fresh veggies that keep well filled my fridge to ensure a balanced diet. I also packed a storeroom full with grains, oils, bottled water, quick meals, medicine, and extras. In my last life, the storm had raged for a month when I died. I'm not sure when it'll end, so I'm preparing for the long haul, stockpiling as much as I can. Lastly, I installed a power generator in the basement. Every day, my family is out, dressed to the nines, not realizing I'm not really home. Max does whatever he can to protect Wendy from my supposed bullying. They're being quite open about their dislike of me now. Wendy, with her storybook character insights, has successfully predicted a lot, solidifying my parents' belief in her. To them, I'm nothing but a walking disaster now, even though I'm their real daughter. If only we sent her to school, she'd anger the wealthy kid and get our dad bankrupt. But she has to go. If trouble comes, I'll take the blame. I owe her that. I watched as Dad's hand tensed while flipping through files, fingers whitening. He tossed my school transfer papers on the table. You won't attend school anymore. Stay home and learn chores from your mother, better than making a mess with some rich family's kid. My face turned serious. You telling me to drop out of school? With a frown, he looked at me all disappointed. You're not as good as Wendy at studying. With your grades, what's the point in going to school? You'd be better off learning from your mom how to manage the house, so you can marry rich someday. My heart turned cold, inch by inch. In my past life, he pushed me to drop out too. Back then, I cried and threw a fit, finally getting the chance to go to school. But it only made them dislike me more. I nodded, unexpectedly obedient. I agree. With shock on their faces, I turned and went back to my room. Before, I held on to a sliver of affection for them, thinking they were just blinded by Wendy. But now, their true colors are clear as day. As night fell, I stood on the balcony, watching the dark clouds roll in. The dry, dusty air filled my nose, sending chills through me. It felt just like the signs of that disaster in my past life. A sandstorm was coming. The next day, strong winds kicked up out of nowhere. At first, they thought it was just a regular windy day and went about their business. But by the third and fourth day, the winds only got stronger. Mom looked at the plants on the balcony, all tilted over and cursed, "What's with this endless wind? Can't even dry the clothes properly." I stayed silent. This was just the beginning. After a week of relentless winds, the sky was filled with yellow sand, each breath gritty and hard to take. Sand piled up thick on the ground, visibility dropped. Cars stopped in their tracks, and roads were blocked. Only then did people get scared, realizing this wasn't just a usual wind but a natural disaster. Stores closed, people stayed indoors, and prices soared. A box of instant noodles was suddenly worth 10 grand. Sand was over 3 feet deep outside, enough to cover most people. In the higher ground of the villa area, Dad looked out and still saw people moving about. "What's all the fuss online about?" "It's not that bad," he complained, more upset about missed social events than realizing the seriousness of the situation. I was puzzled. He wasn't usually so careless. Why wasn't he taking this disaster seriously, even with news reports describing its severity? Turns out it was Wendy, making sure she still got her monthly lavish allowance by telling them the storm would soon end. If you can't even step outside, what's the point in having allowance, right? For now, I needed to stay put, so I suggested, maybe we should stock up on food, just in case the storm doesn't stop. Mom hesitated. But Wendy quickly chimed in, "It'll stop in a couple of days. Stocking up now is expensive, and in this heat, it'll spoil. Sis doesn't know the cost of things 'cause she doesn't run the house. But she's been in an orphanage long enough to know better, unless she's upset and wants to waste money 'cause we've been ignoring her." As soon as she finished, Dad interrupted angrily. "Since it's not your money, you think you can waste it? I regret bringing you back. Nothing but bad luck." Mom stood silently, not stopping him a bit. She carefully covered Wendy's eyes, leading her back to their room. Watching them leave, any lingering warmth in me faded away. Egged on by Wendy, they locked me in the attic, feeding me cold, hard buns each day. Meanwhile, they feasted without restraint, nearly exhausting all food in the fridge within days. By the time they realized the severity of their situation, it was too late. Dad leaned against the window but saw nothing beyond rolling sand. News already showed deaths, some lifted 100 meters by the wind and crashed down, others falling into unseen holes. Max risked it to bring food, saying he worried about Wendy's hunger, secretly taking from home to help her. Wendy accepted it, stubbornly maintaining her role-playing stance that the storm would soon end. Despite learning once, my parents still believed her, thinking Max's help would ensure they'd never run out of food. But Max hid his trips from his family and eventually couldn't bring any more. Wendy first ordered him to help as usual. But once she realized he couldn't, she broke into a fit. Soon enough, food was gone again, and I only had a bowl of thin porridge each day. I yelled from the attic about being hungry, disrupting their sleep. Their lack of food and water, mixed with my constant noise, made them restless. "Honey, we're almost out of food. How about you head out and get us something?" Mom immediately snapped, "Have you even looked outside? How am I supposed to go out? You trying to get me killed?" Dad responded like it was obvious, "So what? We all gonna starve here? I'm supporting this family, still need to work. And Wendy can't go, so it's on you, being of least use here." Mom was furious, breathing heavily. I leaned against the door, munching on jerky from the half-basement stash, laughing at the argument outside. I guess I was too soft-hearted, letting things become this way. Sis brings bad luck. With her here, we're doomed. I should have told you sooner. My mistake. I'll go, Wendy selflessly offered, guilt-ridden. Immediately, my arguing parents quieted, their eyes lighting up. Oh, yeah, they'd forgotten she was the most useless one here. I slowly put away the protein bar, wiped my mouth, and then lay down on the ground looking utterly exhausted. The next second, someone opened the door from outside. I parted my slightly concealed lips, looking extremely weak. They exchanged a glance, and Mom came in to help me up, forcing a smile on her face. "Lillian, these days have been hard for us too, not much better than you." She squeezed her eyes, forcing out a couple of tears. I didn't say anything. If it wasn't for listening to Wendy's inner thoughts while feasting, I'd probably have believed her nonsense. Dad rolled his eyes and got straight to the point, "Lillian, there's no food at home now. Mom and I are old, not healthy, and your sister is too young. Why don't you go out and find some food?" He then quickly added, as if fearing I'd refuse, "Dad knows you don't want to, but we have no other choice. What if, after the sandstorm settles, I give you 50% of the company and buy you a big villa as a dowry?" Mom wasn't having it and was about to protest when he shot her a look, shutting her up. Even Wendy was watching me carefully, afraid I'd hold a grudge and refuse to go find food. To their surprise, I didn't argue and just nodded, "Okay, I'll go." They were shocked. "Lillian, you're really gonna go? The wind outside can kill you." I silently sneered. Turns out, they do know people can die from this. As long as Dad remembers to give me the shares. A hint of disdain flashed across their faces. Dad was overjoyed, quickly yanking me out the door in a hurry. "Lillian, try to get to the semi-basement on the outskirts, there should be some food left there." I demanded to bring my own bag, to pack the stuff. They were just so focused on sending me out, they didn't suspect a thing. As I walked out the door with my bag, they quickly slammed the door shut behind me, no hesitation at all. I put on the protective gear I had prepared, took the car keys I snuck out from home, and headed to the city's outskirts. When I stepped into the safe house I built myself, it was like heaven compared to the tense, depressing atmosphere at home. I started the generator and air handler, and the room instantly brightened up. It had been so long since I smelled air that wasn't dusty and dry. I turned on the AC and set it to a perfect 78 degree, changed into a silk nightgown, and flung myself onto the luxurious mattress. In my previous life, I ended up trapped there, suffocated slowly without light and food, just watching the air run out and getting strangled by my despair. Worse than any torment. I never understood why they were so cruel to me, their own daughter, treating me like an enemy. Now I get it. They love nobody but themselves. Wendy, with her ability to foresee outcomes, helped my dad land huge deals. That's why they favored her. In the end, it's all just selfishness. When I was locked in the dark room, I got by with some snacks I hid, but now, I was in the mood for something nice. So, I leisurely took a steak from the fridge and tossed it onto the skillet. A top-notch tomahawk steak, still slightly bloody, sizzled wonderfully under the butter. I tossed in a few peppercorns and a sprig of rosemary, and it smelled incredible. I cooked the steak just right, sliced it, and poured a glass of 82 wine into the decanter. The aroma mingling was divine. Taking a deep breath, I felt there might be nothing more blissful in this world. After eating and drinking to my content, feeling a bit bored, I picked up my tablet to watch some pre-downloaded shows but, changing my mind, I decided to check on my home's surveillance. I installed those hidden cameras all over when they weren't home, capturing every corner without blind spots. Now, I could lay in my comfy bed, enjoying fruits while watching their every move. I saw my parents casually sitting on the couch, amused by the news reporting worsening sandstorms. Not worried about my safety at all, instead, they were gloating, bigger is better. When she brings back food, we'll leave her outside to fend for herself. She's been nothing but trouble these days. Once this jinx is gone, we'll be back to normal. Completely oblivious to the danger, they were just waiting for the food I would supposedly bring back. Night fell, and I still didn't return. Dad complained about being hungry and ordered Mom to make dinner. But the pantry was bare. They were banking on me bringing food home. Where did that brat go? She better not be hiding somewhere stuffing her face, or I'll skin her alive. My dad, starving, cursed at me and my mom. All useless spendthrifts, me busting my ass to make money, and you just freeloaders. Wendy was too hungry to speak but tried to keep calm. No worries, the storm will pass in a few days. When supplies are scarce, we can profit by selling them. That made Dad smile, and he hugged Wendy, kissing her cheek. Wendy, my lucky star, when all this crap is over, the company shares are all yours. Wendy pretended to be shocked, but didn't you promise the shares to my sister? Dad scoffed, not even pretending anymore. The company I built from scratch, give it to that useless brat? I was just tricking her into fetching food for us. An hour passed, and I was still nowhere to be seen. That's when panic set in. Think she's dead outside? She better not until she brings the food back. Mom tried calling me. I watched my phone flash with her number, finished licking the lychee juice off my fingers, cleaned up with a wet wipe, and answered it leisurely. Hey, Lillian, where the heck are you? Why haven't you brought back the stuff? I faked a tired voice, Mom, the basement's buried in sand. Rescue folks saved me, I'm crammed in a shelter now. What? You got rescued? My mom was using the speakerphone, and when Dad heard I was still alive, he couldn't hold back his emotions. Yeah, Dad, don't worry. I'll be back soon with the supplies they're giving us. You guys just hang tight a bit longer. But they were too hungry to wait. In this post-apocalyptic world, things like dignity and looks don't matter as much as staying alive. There wasn't a grain of rice left at home. They were mad at me, saying, "Are you trying to starve us to death, you ungrateful girl? Get the stuff and come home now." I glanced outside at trees being tossed around by the crazy wind. Going out would be suicide. I can't believe they even suggested it. The rescue team said we have to wait for the wind to die down before they can give out supplies or let anyone leave. I paused and then added, there's still half a piece of bread left from before in the room I stayed at. If you're really that hungry, you might want to use it to hold you over. What? You were hiding bread? Mom's sharp voice cut in. You selfish little thing, daring to hog it all for yourself. Dad couldn't bother grilling me about it. He was already so hungry, he just rushed to the little storage room and dug out the bread. He looked frustrated the next second. The bread was not only stale, it was moldy. Gross blue-gray spots covered it, making him gag. Lillian. Are you playing games with us? I protested, I was starving back then and had to force it down. You won't be picky about this now, will you? They were momentarily silenced by my words. Honey, just split it into 3. We each get a piece to tide us over for now. Dad broke off a less moldy piece for Wendy. Even though she was mad, she had no other choice but to eat it. Then, seeing the hungry look in Mom's eyes, Dad suddenly shoved the whole piece into his mouth. Mom was stunned. When she realized what happened, she started hitting him like crazy. You heartless jerk. I've slaved away for you all these years, and you don't even leave me a bite? I can't believe I was blind enough to be with you. Dad tried to justify it, how is one bite gonna help? You've been hungry all this time, what's a little more waiting gonna do? Watching their dog-eat-dog fight from the surveillance feed, I happily sipped my yogurt. These days have been a blast for me. No need to deal with their drama. I sleep in as much as I want. And food? Not a stress at all. 3 meals a day with Chinese, Western, hot pot, barbecue, something new every time. Sitting on the carpet munching pig trotters, I opened up the home surveillance on my phone. Since the city's water and electricity systems got damaged, households are now limited in water and power. It's hot and stuffy, they can't even open windows or use AC. The little water they're given is either for drinking or taking a bath. But I'm chilling in an air-conditioned room, with the latest ventilation system keeping everything nice and breezy. They've gotten so hungry, they cook the plants from the balcony, roots, and all. Not wanting to waste water, they cook them without washing, dirt and everything. They slurped up every drop, no longer picky like before. They tried checking the weather forecast to see when it would stop raining, but were shocked when they turned on the TV, just static snowflakes. They finally panicked. For the first time, Dad looked at Wendy with suspicion and fear. Wendy didn't expect things to turn out like this. She didn't have any powers to predict the future, just pretended to know because of some book smarts. Thought it'd just be a small sandstorm. Who knew it would get this bad? She definitely couldn't blow her cover now. Dad lost his mind from hunger and stress. If he found out her emotional games cost them a chance to escape, forget inheritance, he'd probably throw her out the window. Lillian said she's at a shelter, right? They have food there. She should bring some to us. My phone rang, and this time, I didn't hesitate to pick up and even switched to a video call. You good-for-nothing waste of space. Are you dead out there? Why haven't you brought us any food? Dad yelled the minute he saw me. I wiped my mouth, casually showing the pig trotter in my hand. Starving, Dad's eyes turned red seeing it shining with grease. Lillian, where are you? Where did all that food come from? You sleep with someone to get it? He looked like a wild animal from the jungle by now. Gone was his former image of a polished gentleman, all within just a couple of weeks. Mom jumped in. You little brat. Eating well on your own while not bringing us anything? I stretched, and the camera accidentally captured the chicken feet, duck necks, pork knuckles, and crawfish in front of me. They were all eyes and drool, practically ready to leap through the screen like wild dogs. I'm at the shelter, remember? I told you before. I'm living great here, don't want to return. If you want food, come find me yourselves. Dad exploded. What are you saying? You want us to find you? In this wind? Are you trying to get us killed? I shrugged. That's not fair. You all told me to walk back alone, if I could make it, why can't you? I was about to hang up. Wendy quickly grabbed the phone. Sis, please don't hang up, I'm begging. We're really gonna starve. What will it take for you to bring us food? Through the phone, I could almost hear what she was really thinking. Get this little brat back first, then we'll deal with her. I smiled. When you need someone's help, you gotta show the right attitude. You're asking me to risk going back, so I better see some sincerity. I'm giving you an order, and you dare bargain? You're tired of living, aren't you? Before he could finish, Mom started pleading with her hands pressed together, and when I didn't react, she knelt down with a thud, banging her head on the ground. Dad was furious, eyebrows twitching, but powerless. Since their lives were in my hands, he and Wendy both reluctantly knelt down too, full of anger. Come on, can't you see? A grown man like me is even kneeling for you. Watching their hopeful eyes, I shook my head regretfully. Sorry, I don't see your sincerity. They totally changed, but I was completely oblivious. I'm afraid that after I go back this time, I won't be coming back again. Last time, I begged you desperately too. Did you ever give me a chance to survive? I gave you many chances, but you chose to believe an outsider and harm your own daughter rather than listen to me. I'm really disappointed in you. You jerk, how dare you deceive us? I shrugged. I told you, I need to see sincerity to help you. But ask yourselves, have you shown sincerity? I didn't wait for their answer and hung up the phone. In the following days, I fully witnessed the collapse of social order in the apocalypse. At that moment, everyone's selfish nature was exposed. With ethics and morals out the window, folks would do anything to survive. Wendy, unwilling to accept it, called Max, agreeing to trade her body for food. Max, driven by hormones, actually stole food from his own house and knocked on my door. As soon as the door opened, he jumped on Wendy like a rabid dog in heat. But instead of a warm embrace, he was met with a cold blade. Wendy was scared out of her wits but still helped her parents hold Max down until his eyes, full of disbelief, lost their light for good. My mother shook all over, sitting on the ground like she'd lost it. My father, on the other hand, wore a creepy grin. Seeing the beast-like glint in his eyes, a horrific suspicion sprouted in me. That night, no one spoke, but the sound of chopping bones echoed all night long. The next day, the family enjoyed a meal of meat for the first time in ages. But a skinny guy only supplies enough for 3 people for a few days, and before long, the food ran out again. Killing became a switch that unlocked their inner evil. The boundaries of humanity kept slipping lower. Now someone had to head out to find a shelter. Without me, this task naturally fell to my mom. Looking at my dad's greedy face and Wendy's evasive eyes, she broke down completely. I've been with you for so many years, and you're sending me to my death? I've been supporting you for years, this is the only time you're useful. Or do you want to starve me, the breadwinner, to death? My mother's eyes turned red with despair, pointing at Wendy. What about her? Don't think I don't know about your dirty little affairs with this little vixen. If I expose you, you'll be a laughingstock. I was intrigued. Thought she was clueless about Dad and Wendy, but turns out she's known all along. Every sneaky move Dad made into Wendy's room at night was caught on my surveillance. Her words enraged Dad, wiping away any leftover affection he might have felt. He heartlessly shoved Mom out the door. Useless piece of crap, threaten me? Don't come back if you can't find food. I watched as Mom stumbled and fell, her leg slamming hard on the steps, the door shutting brutally in her face. She begged pitifully, please open the door, I won't eat, just let me in. She begged her family for a chance, just like I did in my past life, and just like before, no one opened the door for her. She could only limp into the endless dust storm. One day passed, and she hadn't returned. I knew she wouldn't be coming back. My dad realized something too, yet he felt no sadness, instead relieved his reputation was intact. Unable to take it anymore, he finally asked Wendy when the disaster would end, or when they'd get back to normal life. Wendy hesitated, too scared to speak. The man in front of her was no longer the father she called for 18 years. If she lied again and got caught, she'd meet a fate worse than me or Mom's. But Dad's too cunning, Wendy's silence gave him the truth, he'd been fooled all along. Furious, he grabbed Wendy by the throat. If it weren't for you, you little slut, I wouldn't be in this mess. I thought he'd choke her to death, maybe eat her like he ate that man. But Wendy said something, and they went into the bedroom together. When they came out, Dad's rage miraculously vanished. I caught her thoughts, I'm pregnant. Such a cliched plot killed my appetite. For the next few days, I ignored the house cameras, instead watching downloaded movies to pass the time. One day, my tablet got a signal. News was on, reporting the storm stopped, and the dust cleared. Strangely, it felt like a lifetime ago. Timing-wise, in my last life, I died just before dawn, just as the disaster ended. Sadness quickly got drowned out by the drama's story. I'd lived in a semi-basement for a month and got used to it. Remembering Dad and Wendy, I boredly turned on the cameras and was met with an unimaginable sight. Wendy was hacking off Dad's head. His torso already showed he'd been carved up for days. I hurried back through the footage and found that on the night of their fight, Wendy had quietly stabbed a fruit knife into Dad's chest. The sand on the road got cleaned up bit by bit. The road was littered with bodies, and there were countless deaths and missing persons. The truth about his death got completely buried. Wendy became the sole heir. She took over the Lin family's fortune and spent it recklessly. She smugly went to get the paperwork for our family's missing persons status done. How did my sister go missing? After she was taken to the shelter, no one heard from her again. Wendy faked some tears. But the staff at the window looked confused. Shelter? We don't have any shelters here. Wendy was stunned, what? No way. A second later, it was like she realized something. She jumped up, didn't even grab her papers, and ran back home. But she didn't make it to the door before the cops, who were already waiting for her, took her away. In lockup, when she saw me, everything became clear to her. That's right, I sent the footage to the cops. Wendy sat behind the glass with a confident smile. I've already moved the family money and assets. Dad transferred the company shares to me ages ago. Why do we have to fight to the death? Just get me out of here, and I'll tell you everything I know. Then, we can. Lawyer at 46, South Street, right? She paused, her confident smile wavered. What are you talking about? The safe code is 215987. I spoke slowly, the words left Wendy completely shocked. How do you know that? How could you know? I watched her calm mask crumble and smirked a little. You think only Mom and Dad could hear your thoughts? I turned and left as she screamed furiously. Wendy pounded the glass in rage and despair, but the guard pinned her down. Back home, I had a lawyer go through what my parents left. I kept only what I needed for my education and living expenses, the rest, I donated to disaster relief. I always believed in karma, and that the universe gave me a chance to do something meaningful. I just chose to do what I should do.